meeting is being
recorded. Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose Marketing and PR, the editor of Punchline Magazine, and welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers, where each week I invite a panel of experts to review the morning newspapers, find out what's going on in their own individual businesses and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And before we start, I'd really like to thank our sponsors, Hazelwood's, Business Advisors, and accountants. So let's introduce you to the fantastic panel of guests today. We've got John Workman, Senior Partner at BPE Solicitors. Company employs 135 employees, turnover of over 10 million. We've got Cllr Richard Cook, who's the leader of Gloucester City Council. They've got a budget between around 13, 14 million, staff 230. And finally, not last but least, we've got Martin Hughes, CEO of Lillian Faithful Care. Got around 420 staff, 5 homes, and a turnover of around 15 million. So let's go through to this morning's newspapers. I'm just going to share the screen, and this is courtesy of BBC. So, oh my goodness gracious, the worst is yet to come, says the Eye. We've all been witnessing this terrible war in Ukraine. The Daily Telegraph, Putin's chilling warning, worst yet to come. The Daily Mail, who'll rid the world of this ranting madman? The Times, Putin vows total victory. The Daily Express, in God's name, Putin, stop the suffering. The Mirror, talk to me, says the Prime Minister, the President of Ukraine. The Guardian, Putin prompts fears of the worst to come in Ukraine. The Sun, Putin is the extreme gangster. The Financial Times, they're trying to wipe this city off the face of the earth. Let's be honest, it looks like they're trying to wipe us all off the face of the earth. And the Metro, 1 million refugees in a week. The Daily Star, full kit plonker. Well, let's start with you, Martin. It's a terrible list of headlines there that we've got. The worst is yet to come, says Putin.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly frightening, and particularly the news of the strike on the nuclear power plants should worry us all. I think that the thing we're seeing in our business is we have an awful lot of Eastern European staff. Not many Ukrainians, but certainly Romania, Poland, Lithuania, Hungary, Bulgaria. Some of these staff that work for us are worried about how this is going to affect their neighbouring countries as well. And it harks back to this misconception, I think, of the Russian government and Putin in particular, to recreate the old Russian bloc. And that is what's driving him, this historical idea that he can recreate the USSR and just drive straight through the rest of Europe. And it's worrying a lot of our staff.
Let's be honest, I mean, it's the stories and the television pictures that are coming over at the moment are just absolutely terrible, aren't you? You cannot imagine it. And I think, unlike when the Russians and they were bombing in Aleppo and Syria and things like this, I think what really resonates is that these people look like you and I. They look like our families, don't they? You see the little children and their pink anoraks and their fluffy hats, and it's just unbelievable what is happening there. Some of the stories I picked out very, very quickly, and I think we're going to see a lot of this. And there we go. There's a chap here from Bristol who's going off to fight the war, and I think we're going to see a lot of ex-squaddies, ex-military people from the UK, but around the world. I think he's taking.
Well, I think you saw, yeah, I think you saw, or you've probably all seen in the recent news that Vitaly Klitschko, who obviously was a heavyweight boxer, the mayor of Kiev, has put his army fatigues back on. And there's a lot of stories of people, ordinary people, being given Kalashnikovs to defend themselves, which is a terrifying thought when the government voted that the people of Ukraine have the right to defend themselves and bear arms. And you can't imagine that something like that is happening in a few hours away from direct flights to the UK, which is quite frightening.
But I think, I mean, do you think that Britain should just open its doors a lot more and obviously have some of the refugees here?
Personally, I do, yes. And I think we're capable of doing that, and I think we should help them out.
I mean, it leads us actually to Richard. You're leader of the Gloucester City Council, Richard. Is there plans in place to have some of the refugees?
I'm sure they're in the process of being made at the moment by central government, who will decide how many we can take. But one of the things I was really absolutely delighted to see yesterday was a convoy or a trainload of refugees arriving at Berlin, to be met by people with signs saying, I can take 2 people, I can take 4, I'm prepared to have children. And they ended up clearing that entire trainload, and there were still people there at the train station saying, I'll take more, I've got the ability to do that. And I'm hearing here in the UK, the Ukrainian community in Gloucester are prepared to take lots of people, and they're going to be allowed to by the government, and give them the opportunity to work, an opportunity to access public funds. Fantastic result. I'm sure there'll be lots of other people in this country who are prepared to take people into their houses, into their homes, to give them refuge. And let's face it, the last time I saw a job report, we had something like 3,000 people unemployed in Gloucester and some 16,000 job vacancies. So if they have the opportunity to work, they will. I'm sure they'll work. They'll want to pay their way. They'll want to look after themselves. I think we have an obligation to take as many as we can do. And I'm looking forward to seeing just how good people are, because I think they will really show how wonderful people are when there's this great need.
I mean, there's 55 million people that live in Ukraine, and they're on about 1 million people, left in 1 week. I mean, those train loads are just, I mean, that's the terrible thing, is so many people trapped in bunkers and things. Now, John, you're very heavily connected to the Eastern European, aren't you? Isn't it Estonia? What's the connection there, and what's your take on this, please?
Well, first of all, I'm the honorary consul for Estonia for the southwest of England and the Midlands. It's an honorary position. It's a quasi-diplomatic, and it's basically about trying to promote business and cultural ties between our part of the UK and Estonia. The Estonian, many people will know that Estonia was formerly part of the Russian, or the USSR rather. It became, as they call it, re-independent in 1990, 89-90, and is a member of NATO and of the EU. You may or may not know that there is a continuous and continual British military presence there as part of the NATO support. And so there's a battle group of the Royal Tank Regiment on the Estonian-Russian border as we speak, and that's been brought up to be brigade strength. And the Americans are also sending more troops there, etc., as part of the NATO commitment. So if you're in Estonia, you have the comfort of knowing that if a Russian boot crosses the rather amorphous border between the two countries, that's an act of war against NATO. As in the UK, we should have the discomfort of knowing that if a Russian boot crosses that line, NATO is at war with Russia. That's how it is, and that's true for Lithuania. It's true for Latvia, all those 3 Baltic republics. So, are the Estonians worried about their neighbour to the right? Well, yes, of course they are. Always have been. Are they any more worried now than they were 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? Yes, probably. But there are major political, military, business, strategic ties between us as a UK, as individually, and NATO as a whole, with Estonia, and they at least know they're part of the family. But they're part of the family a lot closer to Russian ambition than we are.
It's funny when we talk about NATO, and before, when Donald Trump was right in some ways, wasn't he? The NATO alliance, some of the European countries weren't paying their fair share, and it's amazing. Putin has actually flipped to Germany the other way. They're actually going to spend their 2% of GDP. I was talking to my best friend in Sweden yesterday, and they're very panicking over there because, of course, they're not part of NATO, and Finland borders them, and the Finnish and the Norwegians, the Swedish, want to be part of NATO. It's going to be have the exact opposite effect of what Putin is trying to do, isn't it? Sorry, John.
Well, yes, it is, and they have suddenly started wanting to become part of NATO very recently. I mean, they've been very cautious about, in fact, and wishing not to. I mean, for the very reason they don't want to provoke the Russian bear. They're not stupid, but we have to bear in mind that this is part of the broad sweep of European history. I mean, Putin sees himself as the spiritual heir to Peter the Great, or to Catherine the Great, or to Stalin, all these strong leaders of the past. And yes, he wants to rebuild Russian prestige, but you must bear in mind that if we insist on going to the Russian borders and talking to what they regard as their strategic hinterland about joining our organisation rather than theirs, we are going to provoke a reaction. And much as I am absolutely committed to what we as the West and other countries around the world are doing to support Ukraine, and I wish the Ukrainians every success and so forth, this is to an extent a crisis of our own making.
Absolutely. I mean, do you think that, I'll say this to Martin first of all, do you think Putin's completely lost it?
I don't, because everything that he does is thought through. He's an ex-KGB chief. Everything they think is 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. And I agree with John on this, that whilst I find what the Russian government is doing is abhorrent, they are trying to recreate the old Russian bloc. And part of that old Russian bloc is Kiev and the Ukrainian country as a whole. If we push closer and closer to Russia and to the Russian borders, then they're going to kick back, and that's what's happened. I don't agree with what he's doing for 1 second, but the closer you push to his border, then he's going to react, and that's a classic Russian tactic throughout history. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks. I saw this morning that the UK is on alert for huge cyber attacks, and everybody's been told to increase their cyber capabilities. So I don't think this is the end of it for the UK for sure.
No, I think it's the beginning, really. I mean, I've heard that members of the military are having their leave cancelled, police having their leave cancelled, and not being funny, rightly so. Richard, I'll ask you, sir. Has Putin lost it? Do you think he's still a rational, thought?
I've never met the man, never spoken to him. He wouldn't take my telephone calls last week. If he won't take my phone calls, how can I possibly answer that question? I don't know. I don't know.
Answered like a true politician. No, that's very true. But we're watching him. I was watching him on TV, and it just got more and more frightening with his speech. To be honest with you, I thought he'd completely lost it. Okay, I mean, there's so many different strands to the story. The nuclear one this morning is the one that really caught my eye. Gentlemen, is there any other thing that caught your eye from today's papers? I'll start with you this time, Richard.
I don't think there's very much in newspapers at the moment, other than the stories about the war in Ukraine. No, I didn't catch anything. I was just horrified by everything that you see is all about the war and all about the suffering of the people there. But one of the things that we always seem to forget is that there are young Russian lads who are being told to get in there and invade that country. I don't think they know what they're doing. They haven't a clue. They're dying in their thousands as well. We ought to remember the fact that they're being forced to do it. They're conscripts. They don't want to know. They don't want to be involved in shooting their what they consider to be their brothers and their cousins. They're just being forced to do that by the government. So let's not forget that there are an awful lot of innocent Russians caught up in all of this as well. The Ukraine, we can feel great sympathy for, but I also feel a lot of sympathy for the average Russian citizen who is going to suffer as a result of the sanctions. But lots of suffering is going to occur around the world as a result of the suffering about this situation, because the price of oil has gone shooting up, the price of gas is going shooting up. I saw a quote yesterday that by the end of this year, we'll be paying £3,000 per year for energy costs. How's that going to affect citizens in this country?
Well, if you've got Nike,
already struggling.
If you've got Nike and you've got Apple and you've got Disney and you've got lots of people pulling out of Russia and Airbus has pulled out, I mean, surely they're going to start losing their jobs. The Russian economy can't take such a massive hit. And you're right, the ordinary person, I totally agree with you. These are conscripts. They're not very well trained. They're not like our modern army. They don't have modern equipment. And the classic case is that 40-mile convoy stuck in the mud there. They just don't seem to be have it together as a combat unit. I mean, wouldn't you be worried if you were sitting in a convoy being picked off bit by bit? Yeah.
I think one thing I spotted in the paper that moved down the news a little bit, understandably, is of course this cost of living hit that's coming. And I'm acutely aware of that, employing a couple of hundred people. From the 1st of April, national insurance goes up by 10%, not 1.25 points, not 1.25%. I'll give you a good example. For us in the care sector, we spend £100,000 a year on gas alone. If we renegotiated our contract on the 1st of April, we would pay £350,000 a year for gas. Luckily, we're locked into a contract. So you look at that, at the ordinary person that's working for us, the cost of living crisis is really going to hit hard. We've had to move our pay increase forward to line it up with April to try and give people a good shove. And we're putting pay up by 5% on the 1st of April. You put it up in October the previous year. But that's something that's sort of moved down the news a little bit, that this is impending hike right across food, gas, electricity, fuel, and of course tax increases. And I think that's really going to hit home. I don't think the general public have quite twigged what that's going to look like until they get their April pay packet.
I totally agree with you. All the costs are going to go up. If you have a small hotel or even a large hotel, that cost of, you've just talked about your care homes there, from 100,000 to 350,000. You've got 4 or 5 hotels. You can't suddenly, you'd have to put up your rates, and it's hard
to put up your rates, and the national living wage is going up, but that's not going to touch the sides for a family of, a family of 4. We've got plenty of families working for us where their gas and electric bill is going to go from £150 a month to £300 a month. It's enormous. It's a huge rise, and a 5% increase or a national living wage increase is just not going to cover that. And I think there's a lot of angst coming down the track in the next quarter, I think.
I feel exactly the same. I really, really am worried about the UK economy. We seem to be coming back out, and I think we're going to take a massive hit. And it was a story, John, that you picked up about working from home as well, wasn't it?
Oh yes, indeed. But just to agree with what you, Martin, are saying, there's absolutely no doubt whatsoever that the cost of living crisis we were having already had nothing to do with Ukraine. But undoubtedly what's happening in Ukraine, and leaving aside the fact that the amount of wheat that gets grown in Ukraine, which won't be being harvested and delivered, the amount of gas that won't be coming through from Russia through the Ukrainian pipelines. I mean, we're looking at energy shocks from that. We're looking obviously at the Russians not being able to flog their oil, which will create yet more energy shocks. And I'm afraid a lot of Western complacency about energy supplies is going to be blown out of the water. And the long-term gain may be that people are a lot more savvy about energy security, which is was a crisis looming before a shot was fired in the Ukraine. Be interesting to see how as well as sort of military resurgence in Europe, the reliance on that part of globalization changes. In terms of the thing I picked up this morning from the Telegraph, I did read the Guardian as well for balance. Interestingly, it was a by-election in Birmingham yesterday. Telegraph, Labour win with much reduced majority. Guardian, comfortable win for Labour. Interesting. Anyway, back to James Dyson, who's got nothing to do with any of that. Who's got an article in the Telegraph today saying that home working is proving to be a disaster, particularly for those industries which rely on inventiveness and creativity in collaboration. And he's reacting to a government consultation and potential policy to give workers a right to flexible working. And that's and what he's saying is, well, if you're in the creative industries, if you're relying on people, the buzz, the creativity to develop product, to develop better business practices, even just to do the day-to-day more efficiently, you can't do that when people aren't there. And I have to say, I agree with him. But take heart. So does Andrew Haldane, former Deputy Governor, I think, of the Bank of England, and Kevin Ellis, who is the chairman of PwC, and as it happens, the brother-in-law of one of my partners. And the PwC estimate is that home working is costing the UK about $15 billion a year, pounds a year in lost productivity and lost spend in business which support offices, you know, even down to sandwich shops. My own observation from my firm is that when people are in the office and working together, the buzz, the creativity, the collaboration, even in something as fundamentally dull as law, is actually very valuable. And I think there are very few people who really work better long term at home. I think they would probably done it anyway.
No.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Jo herself, John, and one thing she mentioned, I mean, it's different for our sector because we're hands-on people, but I guess for the legal sector, the trainees and the associates, they learn from their peers. So if they're not in the office learning and interacting with senior partners or senior solicitors, I guess that's very difficult for them to learn going forward. Yeah,
that's entirely true. I mean, I wouldn't elevate what we do to the status of brain surgery, but if you had junior doctors working at home, clearly you can't, how would they learn? What we do is far less important in almost every respect, but some of the skills are not taught.
No, totally agree with you. Well, let's go on to good news, I think. Richard, let's talk to you, sir, because there is good news in Gloucester. There is good news across the county, actually. There's so many exciting projects that are going on. Let's quickly catch up with you. It was Debenhams, King Square. It's all looking good. It's going the right direction, isn't it?
Yeah, the proposals in the form of Debenhams that the university put to convert that into their city centre campus were approved by planning. The planning committee on Tuesday night were working fast to deliver the forum. That's hoped to be delivered by early 2024, and bearing in mind it's not even started coming out of the ground yet, that's going to be quite a fast build. We've almost finished King Square. There's a few outlying bits that some groundwork needs to be done, and we're looking to have a formal opening at the end of April, but I think the main part of the square now is opened up to the public so that they can use it. Planting is going to take place obviously later in the spring. Lots of other stuff going on. The Fleece, we're doing some remediation work there with the hope that our partners there will be able to take that forward and reconvert it into a boutique hotel with retail outlets around it. The food dock is it's in the final stages of being ready. That's on the what we'd call the border between the docks and the city centre. So it actually helps create that corridor between the two. And of course, the food dock, where we'll have probably a dozen different food providers, meal providers, will have right next to it their ready labour in the students that are in Blackfriars, who may well be A, customers, but B, providing labour to run such a place during the times that it's open. So lots of things going on. I'd love to see other areas that we're going to be focusing on already underway, but it's a case of capacity. You can't do everything at once. No,
it's a great job, Richard. It really is coming on stream very fast. No, thank you ever so much for that. Martin, what's the news on Lillian Faithful Homes, please?
Well, we've come through the pandemic, pretty much getting to the end of it now, thankfully. I'm incredibly proud of the way we've come through that. Not down to me, but down to the incredible people that I work with every day. They've been absolutely committed and dedicated to keeping our residents safe. So now we're coming out of that. My main job is to keep John in the lifestyle he's accustomed to and keep BPE busy. So hopefully we're going to merge another charity into ours in the next month or two, and that will provide some affordable housing. We are looking to open a charity shop in Tewkesbury. Joe's helping us with that. And we've got a few other rather exciting expansion plans for later on in this year. Coupled with that, one thing I'm particularly proud of over the last 12 months is we helped the Gloucester Royal and Cheltenham General. We managed to get around 80 people out of hospital fast-tracked into our nursing homes and then back home. So we're going to hopefully be doing a lot more work in the next 12 months with the NHS, and generally helping more and more people in the county. So I'm pretty excited about the next 12 months.
And of course, you were the first care home to get everybody get the jab, weren't you?
We were through some of my lovely contacts at Gloucestershire County Council and this clinical commissioning group. We were the first care home to receive the first jab, second, and the boosters in England, which stood us in good stead. So our infection rates were really low. And yeah, we've come through the pandemic okay. Very much more cautious than any of our competitors, but that stood us in good stead.
Well done, Martin. And of course, we've tried to champion it over the course of the last couple of years as well here at Punchline.
Yes, I do appreciate your support.
Great job, great job. John and Richard, we're kind of running out of time, but John, give us a quick overview of BPE, because you've had a record year as well, isn't it, with deals done there at BPE. Just, John, your microphone's off, mate.
Sorry about that. I was trying not to disturb everybody with my racking cough. Yeah, so our year ends September, so we had a record to last September in terms of turnover, in terms of all sorts of metrics, which is great. I would say actually we've got a much slower start this year. Thank you. So my daughter's very kindly brought some coffee. That's what I call service. Thank you.
I think he's frozen, John. I think you've frozen. That coffee has frozen up.
We're starting in mid-January, so it's not been the sort of start we wanted this year, but we're building very quickly now. And thank you to Lillian Faithful and Martin for keeping busy. My other client is also quite busy, so that's nice. Yeah, I mean, most sectors are booming away. Our tech people are getting into some very interesting stuff in terms of cyber, in terms of financial services type software as well. In terms of a thing called data trust, no idea what it is, but it sounds fantastic. Corporate people, both on the public market and private M&A, we're flat out. Employment has been slow. Interesting, employment team's been slow, and that's true for the firms that I know about, because with COVID and so forth, and the support from the government, an awful lot of people haven't been having disputes with their employers. Either they haven't been able to have them, or they're wiser than to start. So that employment's perhaps been a little slower, but we're picking up some major new clients there as well. So that'll be turning around. So yeah, slow first half. Let's see what second half brings. But I think this will be a month.
No, and we've been following your firm very closely as well, John. No, congratulations there, great work. Now, we're going to wrap up. We've got only a couple of minutes left, so let's just roll through what's caught your eye in this week's Punchline, please. I'll start with you, Richard. What's caught your eye, please?
I think the article that I noticed was about the skeleton team discovered at New Forest Green Rovers Eco Park, and the it just reminded me of the issues that we have in Gloucester whenever we want to build anything new or regenerate somewhere. The first thing that happens is that we have to dig big holes in the ground, go down very deep to find out what's down there. And some of the amazing things that we've discovered in the area where we're going to be working starting work later this month, they're just amazing. The little figurine of Venus that we saw on the same day that we were there talking to the press about it, one of the people digging there found a couple of Roman coins. And I said, wow, Roman coins just like that, how much are they worth? And he said to me, oh, £1 each. There's no value in them. He said they're almost 10 a penny, really. I think he was lying to me, because I don't think he wanted to see those go to anywhere other than his own charities.
No, it's very true, and it's funny, that story with Forest Green Rovers. I don't know if anyone noticed, but we put a team of skeletons, because there were 11 skeletons found. Oh, well, we thought it was quite funny. Martin, what's caught your eye this week, Punch?
Well, Mark, I spotted quite a few stories, so I'm going to whistle through a couple. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. Yes. So the first one, I thought, a story about the Forest of Dean. We've got a 95% female workforce, so I liked your story about the first female verderer or warden. I thought that was really interesting. Our founder was a champion for women's rights, and good education for women. So I thought that was a really good story. I liked the story about the University of Gloucestershire and the campus at Debenhams. We wrote a story recently about the work we do with the uni, training the next generation of nurses, which I'm really proud of. And then the last one on another charity, great story about a charity called Read With Me, something I'm quite passionate about. It's a Gloucestershire charity and they help children with literacy. And I think that's a great little charity to support. So 3 good ones there, Mark, from me.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, great story that Read With Me. John, what have you picked out?
Well, I picked up that the I don't know how many of you know about the Barn Theatre in Cirencester, but it's a brilliant like 400-seat little theatre, state-of-the-art, all mod cons, a long-term project of this founder Ian Carling, who has a huge passion for performing arts and for helping young people get into them and develop themselves as well through it. And they have recently picked up several digital awards. So Best New Production created for screening from the Broadway World Awards. You picked up on that. And my interest in this is partly that as a director of the Everyman in the Gloucestershire Everyman, but based in Cheltenham, we collaborate with the Barn Theatre as well. And I've got to know some of the people there over the years through BPE as well. And yeah, it's a fantastic success story. And if you haven't been, the shows are innovative, they're fun, and some of them are groundbreaking, and it's well worth a visit, should you be so minded.
I totally agree with you. It was absolutely brilliant, and what they did during lockdown as well, really innovative. They just tried lots and lots of things and kept that business going. And as you mentioned, the Everyman, I was at the Everyman not very long ago to watch the show, the magic show that went wrong. And my daughter's boyfriend was actually in the show on stage, and he did a fantastic piece. And I went out with the cast afterwards for a few beers. What a great bunch. And they said that Cheltenham was the best, best audience that they had throughout their whole run. They were really, really surprised and chuffed. This is the cast telling me about how warm and welcome they got from the Cheltenham audience.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind a quick plug for the Everyman, the quality of the shows we get there, and the audiences. It's not just a Cheltenham thing; it's a Gloucestershire-wide thing in education, outreach, and various things in the pipeline for trying to extend that. But it is a favourite with all the touring shows. It's a big draw to come to Cheltenham.
And I heard for the grapevine, I don't want to go too much on the Everyman, but I heard for the grapevine they get a massive audience from the Gloucester area as well. People just think, oh, it's Cheltenham, but it's not at all. They draw a lot of people from Gloucester. A couple of stories I picked out that caught my eye. This actually was Costa to offer food from M&S. Sales of Hotel Chocolat grew by 56%. Services to Success launched their Leadership Month. Very interesting. Lots and lots of guest speakers there. Really, really good draw there. Full fibre internet ready to go in Cheltenham. And the big one for me also was Debenhams gets the green light. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. And a big thanks to our sponsor, Hazelwoods, and to my fantastic panel of guests today. Thanks ever so much for joining us. Hopefully, you'll join us again next week. Thank you. Bye.